Hi everyone, my name is Chris, and this is the beginning of a series of videos I'm going to do on my new open source library called CleanMail. It is an email spam detector, and it uses a combination of traditional AI and these new large language model AIs to clean your junk mail. And you can run it regularly, and it'll clean out the mail put into junk and then expunge it for you. Your email does need to have an IMAP interface, which most of them do. So this is a pretty light lift. Today I'm just going to give you an overview on how it works, and then I'm going to do more videos, and I'll talk about the more videos in just a moment. Okay, so this is a GitHub. It's called CleanMail, Chris A. Harden CleanMail. You can get to it with this little URL, and I'll put a link into the video comments. And it's open source, as I said earlier. So the way it works is it has a little main pie, nothing too special there. And it will contact your IMAP server. So there's a configuration file that you use to configure that. Actually, let me open that real quick so you guys can see what that looks like. Let's see here. Config.json. This is the sample project here. Okay, so you'll put in your email address, your password for your IMAP email interface on the server, and then the port number, which you can get from most of your accounts. If you have cPanel, it's easy to find. Then you're going to put in an Anthropic API key, and here's one of the models that it uses. This is Opus by default, but you can make your own configuration files here for the different models. Then there's a whitelist section if you have some whitelisters that you always want protected, and there's a blacklist section if you always want these guys gone. This script also will do metrics gathering for you, and I'll talk about that in a particular video. But the idea is that you have a config file that you choose which one of the models you want to work with. And I might do other APIs, but for now I'm only paying for the Anthropic interface. And then it runs through and does a traditional check, again with blacklist and whitelist entries. And if it finds those, it'll automatically mark them as junk mail if they're blacklist. And then if not, then it passes off this email that it couldn't figure out to Claude. And you choose whichever one of the models you want to use. And then based on its response, it'll tell you whether or not to move the junk mail, and then MainPy does that. And it will save a log file for you, which is listed right here. The output folder has a log text, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is an example just so that you can see. It'll output a blacklist entry, a whitelist entry. Sometimes the bodies of the emails come back empty. And so they're indicated as such, and haven't really checked into why that's the case. Then we have fine. It's good, like Anthropic thinks it's fine, and Anthropic thinks it's a spam. And with that, it'll process those and put them into the junk folder. And then, as I mentioned earlier, at the end, it will call expunge and clean them out for you. And you can run this script in Windows, at least. This is a task scheduler. You run it in the task scheduler, and you can run it nightly. And it'll do it nightly. Actually, I may change this to something like hourly. I'm not quite sure yet what I'll do there, but right now it's running nightly for me, and it spits out the log file that I mentioned to you earlier. I'm not going to show it running because it has a bunch of email in there that are private, and I'd have to blur everything out. But in addition to cycling through your email and moving them to the junk mail folder, it also has a sections that I'll go into around gathering metrics so that you can do things like making sure you pick the best model for you. And so this is metrics analysis that I did on the Haiku, Opus, and Sonnet models. That's all available from Anthropic. And there's a price per performance trade-off that you have to make, a choice that you have to make. And based on this, you'll choose whichever model you want. I'll give you an idea. I'll get into this in more detail in the next video, but you can see here that the Claude interface from Anthropic will show you how much you've used and how much it costs. It's really friendly, and it's actually quite cheap to do this this filter. So I won't go into it too much, but I got started for $25, and I've only spent like $3 or $4 worth so far in all my testing, which has been a few thousand email. So I'll go more into that in one of the future videos, and as well as the pricing that's associated with these, so you can kind of learn how pricing per token works if you haven't done a paid interface yet for API. And also I'll talk about how I built all of this with the assistance of Claude mainly. Claude is the chat interface. It's not the API where you're asking you're sending function calls, it's the actual chat interface. And so I'll always go through how I build all these with mainly Claude, but sometimes I use some of the other models. So that's kind of it for now. I encourage you to download and try it out, or you can wait for the next video to see how involved it is. But really, it only installs an IMAP interface for Python. The request interface is so that it can actually talk to the endpoints for Anthropic, and then the Python library is all you need right now. These are the only three. If I add something like Llama 2 or Llama 3.1, I'm sorry, 3.2 I guess now, to this, then it would also install Ollama, and you'd run through Ollama to do that. But that might be a future addition that I make. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for your time, and good luck with that. I'd love to know what you think, and I appreciate any feedback that you may have along the way.